Hey guys, I am Dr. Danielle Russell, and I am a physical therapist who specializes in pregnancy and postpartum fitness. And I am here to talk to you guys about CrossFit Open 25.1 and some modifications that we can make for pregnancy and postpartum. So, to begin with, 25.1 is a 15-minute AMRAP of 3 burpees over a dumbbell where you're going laterally, jumping over it, 3 hang clean into an overhead press or an overhead, and then 30 walking lunges. And then after each round, you add 3 burpees over the dumbbell and 3 hang clean into that overhead. So let's talk a little bit about how we can modify some things and make them more appropriate for whatever stage of pregnancy or postpartum that you are in. So the first thing that I want to consider is that we want to keep the workout as close to what the programmed workout is as possible, meaning that we want to keep the stimulus of the workout as close to the same as possible, with modifying as needed versus just modifying because we think that we should. So what does that look like? We want to modify because we're having pelvic floor symptoms, or because we are uncomfortable physically or mentally with a movement because of our pregnancy or the stage of postpartum that we're in. We're not modifying willy-nilly. So we're modifying as much as we need to, as necessary, but modifying as little as we possibly can. Another thing that we can consider is that we can modify the depth and or reps and or the weight that we are using. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specific movements in a second, but those are the things that in general we're thinking about when we're modifying these movements. So let's talk about the burpees into that lateral jump over. So first, again, we want to modify as little as possible. So the least amount that we should modify that is doing it RX, which means that you are doing the full burpee all the way to the ground, and then you're standing up and you're jumping over that dumbbell. Now, if that jump over is uncomfortable, then we can modify to a step over. Yes, this is no longer RX, but if this is what is appropriate for you as an athlete at this point, then we should do that. Another option is a step back burpee. So you can either step over or jump over the dumbbell, but then instead of jumping back and kind of falling down onto your belly, you step back into that and do a push-up. And that is a really good option for those of us who need to modify for impact. Another option is a no drop burpee. So if you are getting a little bit bigger in the belly, then we don't necessarily want to drop all the way to the ground. And so that would be an appropriate modification for burpee if the belly is getting in the way. And then another great option, and one that I really like, is doing a burpee to a box. And so then you can do that full motion of the push-up and come out. You can either step in or jump in, whatever is most appropriate for you and what symptoms you're having at the time. Let's move on to talking about the hang clean and jerk. The great thing about this is that there's not a whole lot to modify. So you can, if it feels great for you to do the hang clean and into a jerk, great, do it that way. If it doesn't feel great to do that, the jerk part of it, then I would modify to a press, which means that we may have to reduce the weight that we're doing. And that is okay. Again, this is a season of life. This is not forever. And another consideration for the burpees and the hang clean and jerks is that we could always modify that number down. We do not have to increase 3 repetitions every single time, especially if we are just doing this workout for fun instead of doing it for an actual score. You can, instead of adding 3 repetitions per round, you can add 1, or you can add 2, or if it feels good to do the burpees, but it doesn't feel as good to do the clean and jerks, then great, do fewer of those, and whichever way that feels better. The last movement to consider is those walking lunges. So if walking lunges are feeling great, you're not having any symptoms with that, do the walking lunges. If you feel like you need to modify that, but you still want to do a lunge, a step back lunge would be a really great option, because that is still getting you that position of the lunge, but it's not quite as strenuous on the pelvis and that asymmetrical position of your pelvis. The next step down, if we're doing like a sliding scale, would be a split squat. So you get into that split position and you are squatting down, and it's essentially the same position as a lunge, but it is much more controlled, which can be less symptomatic for our pelvic floor. The next step down would be an air squat. And I love that as an option, especially for our pregnant and postpartum mamas, because that means that we are taking some of that pressure off. It is more symmetrical through the pelvis and less likely to give us symptoms. But if that is still symptomatic, then I love doing a squat to a target. So then you are squatting to a target, you have a wall ball or a box, and you're using that as the target for you to squat down to. So then that is helping you to maintain that depth and also make you feel a little bit more secure in your body. So that's it, 25.1. And when we are thinking about these modifications, we're thinking we want to modify as little as we need to, as little as necessary, but as much as we have to make this a good, effective, and safe workout for you during whatever stage of pregnancy and postpartum that you are in. The other consideration is that we can always reduce number of repetitions that we're doing or reduce the weight that we're doing and make that appropriate for us as well. This is just a season, guys. I know that you want to be doing the open as unrestricted as possible, and I want that for you as well. But remember that pregnancy and postpartum is just a season. It is not forever. If you need any more help modifying this workout or figuring out an appropriate thing for you to do for the open, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you find yourself in need of physical therapy for your pelvic floor, either during pregnancy or postpartum, or just to get better at doing things in the gym, please let me know. I would be happy to help. Thank you. Have a great night.